Alright, welcome to this video and let's get started. In the previous video, we got introduced to what is called the Streamlit and how we're going to use it to build our machine learning app, right? So in this particular video, we're going to learn how to create a simple app, and then in the next video, we actually going to create more robust app, right? So straight away, let's get started, and then let's see how we're going to do this, all right? Okay, so this is what we are going to create at the end of this video, right? So we're going to create something like this where we can actually load our data sets and then also do some visualization and some analysis over there, and also predict, right? Build our algorithm, right? You use some different models to build algorithm like KNN and then support vector machine, right? We can add as many algorithms as we want, right? So and we're also going to include some default data sets in there, right? We'll see how we do this, right? So this is what we're going to create, and then the same thing just like we do in the Jupyter Notebook, right? Just like we were doing those analysis in our Jupyter Notebook, the same thing that we are going to also use this app to build the same thing, right? So this is going to be more interactive. So let's get started and then see how we're going to build this right from the scratch. All right. So okay, so as we do in our Jupyter Notebook, right, the first thing that we need to do is to actually load the various libraries that we're going to use, right? So I have these libraries here, so I'm just going to copy them and then bring them here, right? So these are the libraries that we'll be needing. Let me just copy this part and then bring them here, right? So these are the libraries that we're going to use in this particular exercise, right? So if you can see over here, we importing Streamlit as st, right? Just like we did in the previous video, right? So import then Streamlit, right? Streamlit as st, okay? And then import numpy as np, then import seaborn as sns, import matplotlib, right? Import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Then from sklearn, import datasets, right? We're going to use some default dataset in this. That's why we're importing this. We're going to need it, okay? And then from sklearn.model selection, import train test split, right? So that will be able to split our data into training and testing, just like we do in the Jupyter Notebook, all right? And then from sklearn.decomposition, import pca, right? So we would like to print or visualize some principal components in here, right? So we would like to use this one. And then from sklearn.svm, we are going to import svc, which is the support vector classifier, right? And we also from sklearn.neighbors, we are going to import what is called the k-neighbors classifier, all right? Then from sklearn.metrics, we are going to import what is called the accuracy score to measure the accuracy of our model after we've built it, all right? So these are some of the libraries that we're going to need, and we're going to add some image there, right? So this image that you see, we will need this library to do that, all right? So that's why you can actually see this over there, all right? So this is what you can see over here, right? From here, we are just setting the title, right? So st.title, then the title that you want to set, right? So let me actually quit this one so that you can actually see. Let me quit this one, and then I'll come here, then I'll stop this one, right? I'm just quitting it, then I'll do it again. So let me just clear this screen, then start everything from scratch. So I'm going to use Streamlit. Let me actually save this one, right? So I'm going to actually save this. Let me save it as maybe exercise 1, right? So let me actually do it something like that. Exercise 1. Let me do it. Let me just write this one, right? Exercise 1.py. So I'm just going to save it like that. Then if I come here, I'm going to run exercise. I'm going to use Streamlit run exercise 1, right? So that's what I'm going to use. Exercise 1.py, right? So that's what I'm going to use, right? So I'm going to use Streamlit, right? Then run, then it's the file name that I just created, exercise 1.py, right? So let me just save this one, Control S, right? So if I do that, then I run this, right? So it's going to open in my browser phone, all right? All right, so here we are. See that it's loading over here. Okay, now this is what we have. Okay, now we've been able to import our libraries, right? So we use So we use this, right? We've used these libraries, right? I mean, some of them we've not. I mean, the only thing that we're using right now is this import Streamlit as st, and then this image, right? That's the only library that we've been using so far. We will continuously using these libraries that we've imported as we progress. Okay. So we set the title st.title, right, and that's what you can actually see here as total data science, right? That's what you can see over there. And then the image, right? I have this image TDS logo.png, right? I have that image. So in your case, you can select any image from your system, right? So you can select any image from your system and then you display it over there, right? And then st.image. So this is what is going to help me to display the image over here. All right, then after that, I'm just printing this st.write, and then I'll print this a simple data app with Streamlit, right? So that's what you can see over here, a simple data app with Streamlit. So this hash here is actually helping me to plot either, to write it either bold or, less bold. So if I increase this hash, it's actually going to reduce the size here, right? So as I always say, you need to set this to always run, right? So that's any change that you make will automatically run for you. All right, so now you can see it has reduced size, right? So if I reduce this, if I change this to 1, then I save it again, you see that it's running. Now you see that it has become bolder here, right? So depending on how bold you want it to be, right? So let's explore different classifiers and data set. You see that one is less, as compared to a simple data app with Streamlit, you see that one is less emphasized, right? So because I've added this hash over there, right? So basically that is what we've done so far to get this interface. Okay, so I hope you'll be able to follow along, right? So I hope you did not skip the introduction, which is very important, right? Everything that we are discussing here is coming from the foundation that we built from the introduction video, right? So if you've not watched that, I encourage you to watch that before this video. All right, so if you've watched that, then these things are simple for you, right? So how you're going to run this from your terminal, right? Like I did over here. We've discussed everything in the introductory video, and I'm sure you've gone through that, and I'm sure you're aware of how you will do this. All right, so having gotten that, let's start to do something meaningful here. All right, so let's start to put some sidebar here, right? Let's start to put some sidebar here, and then maybe in this case it will be the various data sets that we want them to select, right? So they can actually select a different data set and then make the analysis, right? So this is a web app that we are building, and we want it to be as flexible as possible. Okay, so let's move on and then do something like that. So I'm just going to create a new variable, like maybe data set, and let's go data set name, maybe something like that. So I can do it like that. And then for that, I'm going to use st. Right. If you remember in the introduction video, I told you if you want to put sidebar, you can just use st.sidebar. Right. You can do that, and then whatever you want to do. So now I want to use select box. Right. We've also discussed select box in the introductory video. That's why I urge you not to skip that. Right. So over here, I'm just going to give some instructions here. So maybe select. Right, select classifier. All right, so or maybe select a data set. So let's do it for data set first. So select data set. Like that. Then after that, I'll now give them some options of data sets that they can select. Right, so I'm going to put that one here. So we will be using the breast cancer, right? We'll be using the breast cancer data set. Then we also use the iris data set, right? We also use the iris data sets. Then let's see, we can also use the wine, right? You can also use the wine data set. Okay, so I think these three are okay. Then after that that is done. So let's see. Let me first save this, and then let's go and see. I don't want to pages. Let's go and then see what we have so far. Okay, so now you see that we have sidebar. Right? You see that now we have sidebar, and then we have breast cancer, iris, and wine. Okay, so as simple as that, right? As simple as that. Now that is breast cancer. That's for the data set. So let's give them option to select which algorithm they want to use for this purpose, right? Which algorithm they want to use. So as I did over here, I did dataset name. So I'm going to do the same thing for, say, classifier name, right? So classifier underscore name, right? I'm going to do that, and then in that I'm going to put it at a sidebar. So I do st.sidebar, right? I do that, and then I will use select box. All right, I do that, and so inside the select box, I'm going to give them some instructions as maybe select classifier, right? As simple as that. Select classifier, and then I'll give them some options to choose from. So in that case, I'm just going to use say SVM, right? Support vector machine, and then they can also use say KNN, right? They can also use KNN. Okay, so that's done. Let's save this one too, and then go and see what we have. Okay, now you see, now we have another sidebar here, select classifier. So if I go in, you see that we have SVM and then KNN, right? So as simple as that. I mean, building this is fun, it's simple, it's easier, it's just fun to do that. All right. And now let me see, let's start to load these dataset for them, because if they select it, they need to if, for instance, if someone selects the breast cancer dataset, you need to start loading, right? So let's do that one here. So I'm going to define a function over here. So I'm going to use def, then maybe do get underscore dataset, right? So get dataset, and then inside this one, I'm going to put the name of the dataset over there as an argument. Then over here, I'm just setting this one to none, right? So that my dataset, I'm just initializing this one to none. Okay. Then if the person selects if the person selects, say, Irish dataset, the person selects Irish, so let me do it that way. If the person selects Irish dataset, then I will load the Irish dataset, right? So then in that case, I will load the Irish dataset. So I'm going to use, remember that we imported this, right? We imported dataset over here. So inside that dataset, I'm going to load this Irish dataset. So dataset.iris, right? So you can, or maybe it's something, it's supposed to be like this. Load iris, right? So this works. Then I'm going to use else, right? So if the person doesn't select iris, then maybe we gave them two options, right? We gave them two options here, either breast cancer, okay, and then Y. So maybe we should do elif, right? So we do, instead of else, so let's do elif, right? That is else if, right? Else if the name that the person has selected is so the second one, we can say Y, right? So if it is Y, then what should we do? We should load the Y dataset, right? Because datasets, okay, dataset dot load Y. So that's okay, that's done. Now if after that if the person doesn't select iris or Y, then obviously the person will select breast cancer dataset, right? So you see that the person will select iris or Y, right? So if the person doesn't select any of them, then obviously the person will select breast cancer, right? So let's do that. So else data, right? Else, then our data will be equal to, then we will load dot. So we are going to load load breast cancer. I think breast cancer is not here. So let me just try typing it, then it will come. So load underscore breast, yeah, now it's there. Okay, so now we're done with that. So what we're going to do is to just give our data, just store it in a variable. So data dot data. Let me do it like that way. Just to store it. Then I'll create another variable called Y, and then Y is also going to take data, and then the target in it, right? So it's going to actually take the targets. All right. So that is it. I'm actually going to store it in two variables, x and y, and then I'll return x and y, right? I'll just return x and y, x comma y. Okay, so now we're done with this one. We're done with that. Now let's see what we can actually do over here, right? Let's see what we can do. Let's actually make sure that this is actually in the form of a data frame, right? So I'm going to do this x y, right? X y equals let me call this function. Let me actually do it outside this one. Okay, so I'm going to get xy equals get a data set. Okay, so I'm going to call that function. Then inside that function, I'm going to pass in dataset, right? Dataset underscore just some argument, right? Dataset underscore name. I'm going to pass in that. Then remember that we've created this dataset underscore name over here, right? So we're going to put that one here, right? That's the argument that we're going to pass in. So we call this function, right? We call this function, and this name that we want should be a name from the options that we've given them, right? It should be a name from the options that we've given them up here. All right. So after that, then whatever data that the person will select, we convert that then that data into a data frame, right? Convert it to a data frame. All right, so that's going to be the x over here. All right, then after that we can now do st.write, right? I'm sure you're familiar with this st.write by now. All right, so inside that I'm going to we can do several things. Maybe the shape of it, right? We can display the shape of it as soon as the data is loaded. We can display the shape of it. So shape of our data set, or maybe the shape of so the person will be the one selecting. So shape of your data set. Let me do it that way so that it makes sense to the person. All right, so shape of your data set is I can do this, then I'll bring that, then I'll put over here, that's going to be x.shape, right? So it's going to be like that, x.shape. All right, so that's it. This shape is supposed to be small, right? That's it. Supposed to be small later. Okay, so that's one of the things that we can do. We can display the shape. We can also display maybe how many uniques variable are there in the target column. So I can also do st.write, right? st.write. Then inside that I can write unique. Yeah, maybe something like that. It's supposed to be in quotes, right? So unique target variables, maybe something like this. Unique target variable. All these are something that you can just change, so don't worry about it. You just do it according to how you want it to be. All right, so in this case I'm going to use the length, right? The length of this. Usually we use np.unique function, just like we do in our Jupyter Notebook, right? So these are all Python commands, right? So don't forget our target is stored in Y, right? Our target is stored in Y, so that's the unique that we can find there, right? So let me save this and see what we've done so far. I mean, I think we've written enough here, right? So let's see. Let me just go through before we go back here. Let's first see if it is working, right? Okay, now it's working. All right, so you see that the data is being loaded, right? So let's explore different classifiers, right? And then you can see shape of your data set is, and then unique target variables. You see that everything is working. So if the person selects iris, then iris data set is going to be loaded. Now you see that. You see that it has been loaded over here. If the person selects say y, then the y data set is going to be loaded. Now you see that. Now and then you can see shape of the data set there. You can see unique targets being there, right? So I mean, as simple and as fun as possible, right? So we've not come to this algorithm yet, so let's leave that part. All right, so let me just take you through one more time of what we just did. So I just created a function here, right? Def get the data set, which will help me to be able to get the data set, to be able to load the various data sets, right? So don't forget that earlier on we have given them option. This is the sidebar that we created, right? So if someone selects a breast cancer data set, then the breast cancer dataset should be loaded, right? So that's why you can over here, that's actually coming in the else part, right? So if someone selects, say, the iris dataset, right, that is if name equals iris, right, it's equivalent to iris, then we load the iris dataset, right? We load the iris dataset. That's why we see we're using this argument over here. So if the argument, if we call the argument and the argument is equal to iris, that is the person want to load the iris dataset, right? Then we load that for the person. Okay. However, if that argument is equivalent to, say, y, right, then we load the y dataset, right? Else, that is if the person doesn't select iris or y, right, then obviously the person will want breast cancer, right? The person will select breast cancer. So in that case, we load the breast cancer dataset. So these are dataset that which is default, right? It's actually default. So if you import this dataset, right, it's actually present in sklearn. All right. So if you import this dataset, automatically you will have it, right? You will have it. So there's no need to worry about it. So in this case, we are not getting any CSV file from our local system and then load it, right? It's present in the library, so we can load it straight away. Okay. And in the subsequent video, we're also going to see how we will load it straight away from our local system. So if the person is using our app and the person is having the data set present on their computer, they can also load it, right, without maybe using the default. All right, so we will see that one too in the upcoming video. All right, so after that, I store these in a variable called x and then y, right? So the x is going to take the targets, I mean the independent variables, right? And then the y is going to take the dependent variable, which is our target over here. Okay. Then after that, we have this, right? We call the function. If we create a function, right, in order for the function to work, you have to call the function. So we call the function over here. That's where you can see get data set, right? And then the name, now in this case, the name should be one of these names, right? It should be one of the either breast cancer or iris or y. That's why we are passing in this dataset's name, right? That's why you can see over here, right? Remember that when we created the function, we just created an argument over here, right? So that the user can pass in this argument, okay? Then after that, we set everything, we convert everything to a data frame, right? And then we just display some stuff. So over here, you can display anything that you want. So in this case, we just display the shape, right? The shape of the data set, and then how many unique targets. So you can just play around this, right? You can just play around this. Okay, so let's proceed from here. Let's just proceed from here. Now this is done. We've been able to display this. Let's try and then display some plots, right? So maybe let me just do fig equals plt, right? I'm using matplotlib here, right? So don't think that we are doing anything differently. It's just the same thing that we do in our Jupyter Notebook, right? Just that in this case we are using test editor, and we over there we use Jupyter Notebook. So that's just the difference, right? So st dot I'm setting the figure. Let me actually use seaborn, right? So sns dot what else can we plot first? Okay, let's try box plot, right? So let's try box plot, and then inside there I'm going to put, so my data is actually going to be the x, right? Remember my data is stored in x, right? That's my dependent independent variable, right? And then I'll set the orientation, right? That is the orient. I'll set the orient to be say h, that is horizontal, right? I set it to horizontal. So in order for you to see this, right, if I do Control S, nothing will show, right? Even if it runs, nothing will show. You see that you're not seeing it. For you to see it, you have to use plt.pyplot, right? You have to use plt.pyplot. Okay, use that one, and then st, not plt. Sorry for that. st, right? Use st.pyplot, then you can actually do that. So if I do Control S, that is to save it. Now let's come here, it's running. So let's see what we see. Now we have our output here. See that we have our output here, right? So that's for the wine dataset. Let's see it for the iris dataset, right? So it's going to load the iris dataset. Now you see what we have, right? A very nice pie plot over here, right? So a very nice box plot, right? Remember that we're using box plot, right? sns.boxplot. Okay, so you can do a lot of stuff over here. It's flexible. You can, not that I'm using box plot or you're supposed to use box plot. box plot. You can use anything that you want over here. All right, so maybe I should just try this too. Maybe plt.h try. So let me just try histogram 2 and then see what I can do. So I pass in my data here. I'm not going to do any fancy stuff here. I'm just making it as simple. So remember that I told you, in order for you to see, use st.pyplot, right? So if I do save, and then I come here, right? You see that I have histogram here. Very nice one. All right, very nice one. Let me see it for the wine dataset. Okay, so this one is actually a big one. You can see that most of them are clustered here around 0, maybe 0 to 100 or something like that, right? Whilst we have some few of them somewhere here. Okay, if you see it for the breast cancer, right? See it for the breast cancer. So you see how you can interactively make people use your app. They can easily get to understand what the data is about. They can easily get to understand without showing them this code, right? Because if you're doing this presentation to your stakeholders or your team managers or your boss, right, they don't really want to see this, right? If you show them this, some of them even get bored and they start to sleep, right? They don't really want to see code like this, right? What they want to see, show them what you want to tell them, all right? So if you show them something, some interface like this, they will actually reason with it. They can really understand what is going on over here, right? They can really understand what is going on over here, rather than showing them this kind of code or maybe the Jupyter Notebook, okay? So you can actually do that. You can actually do that. So at the end of this, I expect you to build this from scratch, being as flexible as you want, being as dynamic as you want, being as creative as you want, right? And you can apply this to all your projects, right? Or the project that we do. I mean, make this work for you as your portfolio, right? So with the assignment that I'll give you, with the project assignment that I'll give you, this is what I expect you to do. I mean, present it in this way, right? Build a web app for it and make it as dynamic as possible, as creative as possible, all right? As creative as possible, because this is a good way if we are able to build your portfolio in this way instead of you just building those algorithms in the notebook, okay? And any of these, right? We are going to build the algorithm, I mean, in a few seconds to come, right? So any of the concepts that we are doing here, we've already discussed them in the introductory video, and even with the algorithms, we have video tutorials right from scratch to the end. So if you are not familiar with anything, you can go back and then click on any of the videos. And so, for example, if you don't know what support vector machine is, we have a whole tutorial on support vector machine right from the scratch to the end. So you can actually reason with that. Okay, you can get to understand that. So that's that for you. So over here, let's start by building an algorithm. Let's start by building. So you can do a lot of stuff here. I'm doing box plot and then histogram here, right? So you can add as many as you want, right? As many as you want. Now, you can even do pair plot, right? You can also do pair plot here. You can do heat maps, some correlations and others, right? So you can do a lot of them. In the subsequent videos, you will see a comprehensive one that we will build, right? You will see those kind of stuff there. But I want you to be as flexible as possible. Even if you've not watched that video, you still can be as creative as you want. Right, now let's start by building an algorithm. So let me just write it here, right? Building our algorithm. Okay, so what we're going to do, let me first define some function over here, right? And then some parameters that I will need, right? So I'm going to use this add parameter here. Just creating this function called add parameter, and then inside there I'm going to give I'm just going to give any argument, maybe name of the classifier, because what we're going to do is a classification problem, right? So I'm going to use that. So name of classifier, just name of CLF is fine, right? So if I do that, right, then let me just open this params, right? So I'm going to do this, then I'll set it to this, all right, just like that. Then if name, that is the argument that I've given, right, just like we did over here, right? If name, right, we give argument here. So if that argument that we're giving, right, is equal to this, then we give some actions that it's supposed to perform, right? So the same thing that we are doing here. So if this one is equivalent to SVM, remember that over here we've given classifier name, right, because this, and then some classifiers that we want SVM, and then KNN. So I'm going to do that. So if name of classifier is equal to say SVM, right, if it's equal to SVM, then let's see, what action should we do? We're going to put this on the sidebar, right? So we're going to put this on the sidebar. Remember that in SVM we will need something called C, which is the penalty, right? So we talked about this, that if you remember, if you've watched the support vector machine video, right, we have a whole tutorial on that. If you've watched that video, you'll get to know that in order for support vector machine to sometimes linearly separate some clusters from, some data points from the other, sometimes there might be some crossovers, right? So in order to do that, we add something called the penalty, right? We add something called the penalty. So this C that you're seeing here is the penalty, right, that we're going to give them. And this is a hyperparameter, so we want to give them the flexibility of choosing their hyperparameters. Okay, so we're going to add this as a slider on the sidebar, right? You're going to add that one here as a slider on the sidebar, right? So that will be flexible for them, for our users to be able to use that, right? If you don't understand any of these things, the penalties and the support vector machines, I entreat you to watch that video. There's a concrete explanation in that, which you can get it right from the scratch. All right, so that is done. I'm going to put this thing on the sidebar. So remember, if you want to put anything on the sidebar, use st.sidebar, right? And that is done. Then after that, what I want to do is I want to put a slider, right? So we've talked about the slider in the introduction class, and I know by now you understand what that is. Okay, so that is the C that people will choose. So I want to set its initial value to say 0.01, and then all the way to say maybe 15 is fine, right? All the way to 15, maybe 15.0 is fine. Okay, and then after that this params that I open, right, I just put this inside there. All right, so that's going to be my params, and then let me do it this way, capital C. All right, so this is supposed to be equivalent to C. I'm going to use these parameters later on. You will get to see it, right? So if the person selects this C, if the person first selects support vector machine, we will give the person the flexibility of selecting the C, right, which is a hyperparameter, right? We can also add gamma. So over here, you can do the same thing and then add the gamma over here. So let me leave that one to you. You just can add that one. So you can be as flexible as you want, right? So in this case, I'm only adding C. You can also add gamma in the same way, st.sidebar.slider, and then you use, instead of C, you use G, right? And then the gamma value that you want to give, you just give it over there, right? So that's what you can also do. So if the person doesn't select SVM, right, we've given two algorithms here, SVM and then KNN, right? So now if the person doesn't select SVM, then obviously the person will select support vector machine, KNN, right? If the person doesn't select support vector machine, then the person will select KNN. So else name of classifier is equal to KNN, right? It's equal to KNN, and then for that I'm going to use K equals, so it's the same thing that we did for C. I'm going to do that for, don't forget, in KNN you need to choose your K, right? You need to choose your K, and if we've discussed how you're going to use the K using the elbow method, we've discussed everything into details, right? If you go to if you don't understand any of that, you can actually go, let me try and see if I will find this thing that we've discussed, right? So we've actually discussed everything here into details, right? So you see that we have the elbow method here, right? We've discussed everything right from the scratch to the end. So if you don't understand any of the terms that I'm using over here, you can just refer to any of the videos, right? So you can refer to any of the videos, and then you get to know it. Okay, you'll get to understand it. All right, so that one for you. Let me actually go back. All right, so in the video we've actually discussed what K is and how you can choose the K, right? So I'm sure if you have a little bit in idea about this K, and then you know what K means, right? That's the number of neighbors. If I should show you this, right? That's the number of neighbors. So if you choose K equals 3, it means that you're considering 3 neighbors, right? You choose K equals 5, you're considering 5 neighbors, right? And choosing K is quite critical, and you need to take some critical steps in choosing that. We've discussed that using the elbow method, so I entreat you to watch that video if you want to gain more insight into that, right? So in this one, we just want to create this app, so we're not going to go into that one. Okay, now st dot let me put it a sidebar. So st dot sidebar dot dot slider, right? So we use dot slider, and then inside the slider, let me use over here, let me create this K. Right, so I'm going to create that K, and then let me set the initial values, right? The initial values, maybe let me start from K equals 1 all the way to maybe K equals 15, right? I think that should work for us, right? So all the way to K. You can be as flexible here as possible, right? Be as flexible here as possible. So all these are hyperparameters that I'm giving flexibility for our users to be able to use this, right? So after that, we return our params. So over here, we have to call our function. So I'm going to write params, right? I'm going to write params, and then params equals, then I'll call our function, which is add parameter. Then inside our function, I'm going to pass in the classifier, right? So the classifier name, okay? So that's done. Let's save it and then go and see what do we have over here, right? So it's running. Let it run, and then let's see if we have. Now you can see that we have our slider there, right? You can see that we have our slider. So we can actually do that. We can actually be changing these sliders, right? You can be changing them over there. Okay. Now we have our. So if it's XVM, we're going to have our C, right? If it's KNN, right, and then the K is going to come, right? So just watch it and see that it's running. So after it has finished running, you see that it has changed from C to K, right? So we can change our K as we want. We can change our K as we want. All right, let's proceed here and then go to the main, where we can actually access our classifier, right? So let's do it this way. So I'm going to define another function here. So maybe I should give a comment here, right? So something like this. Right, accessing our classifier. Then inside that, I'm going to use df, right? Df get underscore classifier, right? Get underscore classifier, and then I'll use the name of the classifier. Actually, it's supposed to be name underscore, yeah, name of classifier, and then the parameter, right? So yeah, and then the params, right? So the classifier, so if the name is say SVM, right, that's going to be the name of the classifier, and then the parameter, right, the params is actually going to be whatever value that the person would choose. So if it's SVM, we expect to choose some C over there. If it's KNN, we expect to choose some K's over there, right? So that is the function that I'm going to define over here. Then I'm just setting this this classifier equals none, right? So it's supposed to have something inside there, right? Initially, I'm just initializing it into none, right? So after that, I'm going to use this. So if the name of the classifier is say SVM, right? So if the person selects SVM, then what should we do? In that case, we're actually going to perform the support vector classifier, right? So we're going to do that. So our classifier is going to actually be SVC, right? Support vector classifier. In that we're going to pass in C, right? You're going to pass in some C. Let me do this. So this C is actually going to be nothing but this param C that we've created already. All right, so we've already created that C, so that's what it's going to be You see that we have kernel, we have gamma as is, we have degree, we have coefficient. So you can add all these here. You can add all these. You can add all of them here, right? All the parameters that you want to create over there, right? So in this case, we just created for C. You can add it for. You can create it for gamma, for degree. I mean, coefficient. You can do all those over there, right? So after that is done, so if the person doesn't select this SVM, then obviously the person will select KNN, right? So let's do that. Then name of classifier will actually going to, or maybe in this case we're using CLF, right? So we're going to use CLF should be equal to CLF. Yeah, CLF should be equal to now we're going to use k neighbors classifier, right? And then in that we need a neighbors. So the number of neighbors here is actually going to be our k, which is contained in what is called the params k, right? So we bring our k inside there. All right, so that is done. That's as simple as that, right? As simple as that. And then if the person doesn't select any of this, so we're going to give the person error, right? We can also do that, or maybe we just ignore that one. Let's ignore error in this scenario. So we're going to return our CLF, right? Our CLF over here. Okay, so that is it. That is basically what we're supposed to do. Now we need to call our function. Remember, if you create a function, you need to call it before it works. Okay, you need to call the function before it works. So I'm going to use CLF equals get classifier. That's the classifier that we just created. Then inside there, I'm going to put the classifier name and also the parameters, right? So that's going to be params, right? So that's the classifier name. So if you remember that we have name of the classifier and then the params. So whatever classifier name the person will choose, if either SVM. So if the person chooses SVM, then we expect some C values in there. If the person choose say KNN, then we expect some K values in there, right? So that's basically, that is it. All right, so after that, let's try and then do the same thing that we do in our Jupyter Notebook, that is splitting our data into, say, S train and then Y train, S test and Y test, right? So we're going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to do S underscore train, right? And then also S underscore test, right? And then I'll do the same thing for Y underscore train, okay? And then I'll also do Y underscore test, right? All right, so that is done. That I'm going to use train test split. Remember that we've actually imported train test splits earlier on, so I'm going to use that, right? We've imported train test split here, right? Just like the same thing that we do normally in our Jupyter notebooks, right? So train test split. Then inside that, I'm going to pass in my X and then my Y values, right? I'm going to do that. And then I can set, maybe split this into 80-20, right? 80% for training and then 20% for testing, right? So whatever the person will, data set that the person will select, I'm going to actually split it into 80-20 ratio, right? That is 80 for training and then 20 for testing. So test size, I'm going to use 0.2 over here. That is 20% for training. And then I'm going to set, say, random state. So this random state, you could have actually added it as a slider, right? You could have also do that. So you can do that. I'm just leaving that one to you to be as flexible as you want, right? So just do as many. So if you want to do that, you can just do the same thing that we did over here. Right? So you could have added over here another if something like that. Another instead of this being else, you can do it elif, right? And then you come with else over here, and then you add another slider, or you can just add it differently from this. You can just create it somewhere separately here, right? You can also do it like that. All right. So you can just be as flexible as you want. So instead of random state equals 10, this one becomes fixed, right? We could have given them a slider which will become flexible for them to choose as many different random states as they want, right? So that they will check which one is doing better for them, right? So after we've split our data, what we need to do is to fit it, right? We need to fit it. So CLF we're going to do clf.fit, right? Don't forget clf is the one going to contain our model and the parameters, right? So that's what our so here it's more like initializing. It's just like we do if you call your algorithm, you initialize it, right? So we just the same thing over here, right? So clf.fit, then we fit it on the training, so x train, right? We fit it on s train and y train, right? So I don't know if this s train, and then we also fit it on the y train, right? So that is it. So that is done. If we fit this, we are done. We can do some predictions, right? So let me do that. Let me call it y underscore pred. That is y predictions, right? And then this is going to be clf dot predict. Yep, that's I need that one. Then I'm going to use the test data. That is so inside the I'm going to pass in my test data. That's the s test, right? S test, all right, s test, and then also the y test, right? That is the y underscore test. All right, so that's what I want to do. That's what I want. Basically, what I have to do. Okay. Then you can let me actually put this one here. Okay, you can actually display your predictions, right? So maybe maybe we can do st.right, then we put in y predict, right? So we can put in y underscore predict, so that it will actually make those predictions for us, right? It's actually going to do that. Okay, so this is done. This is done. So after that, let's see what else we can do. So now we've been able to define a function to where we can fit where we can select the various classifiers, and then the various hyperparameters in here. We can do that, right? And then we've been able to also initialize our model over here, and then we've been able to split our data into training and testing over here, and then we fit our model. That is where our model learns, right? So this model becomes a model that has learned from our data, and then after that we made some predictions and print the output over here. Okay, so that is basically that is it. That is done, right? So let's maybe print. Let me save it and see so far how we are doing, right? Let's see if we are not making any errors, right? So let's see. So over here, I'm not supposed to add this, right? So predict, we're just predicting on the S test, right? So that's what I'm supposed to do, right? Not S test and Y test, right? So let me save this, then come back here. Yeah, sure. Now you can see we have some predictions, right? Some zeros and ones being predicted for us. All right, so let's see the accuracy, right? We can actually see the accuracy over here. For that we can actually print the accuracy by using this. Let me actually do this. So accuracy, let me store it in a variable. So I'm going to use the accuracy score, right? The accuracy score, and then inside there I'm going to pass in. Right, so this is when I will use my y test, right? I'm going to pass in my my y test, right, and then my y prediction, right? So that is the y underscore pred. Right, so this is what I have to pass in over here. Then after that, let me just print this accuracy. So st.write. Then inside this, I'm going to print any message in here, right? So accuracy. Let me maybe write it like this. Accuracy for your model, maybe let me see name. Okay, or let me just do it like this. Accuracy for your model is, I think this is going to be simple. Then I'll pass in accuracy, right? I'll pass in that. Then I can also do or maybe I should print the classifier name, right? So maybe over here, let me first print the classifier name. So st.write, and then I'll pass in the classifier name. So the classifier name is going to be classifier name do this, right? Then inside that I put my classifier name, right? I'll put the classifier name there. Okay, so I think this should work. Let me save it. Let's go back here and then see what happens. Okay, good. Now you can see what we have. Classifier name is KNN, and then the accuracy for your model is 0. That is 93% or 94% if you want to run it. So if the person selects, say, the Irish data set, let's see what we're going to have. So it will load it, and then it will start. You see that we have our box plot here, we have our histogram, we have the predictions, we have the accuracies, right? So over here we can tune the hyperparameter. So instead of k equals 1, we can choose maybe k equals 8 and then see how well this accuracy is. Now it's actually doing 100%, right? It's actually doing 100%. Now if we do say if we use a different algorithm to support a vector machine, right, in that case we need to tune our C, right? We need to tune our C. So let's do that one and then see. C is giving us an error here. So let's go back and see what C is doing while we have an error here. All right. So let's see. Okay, so now you see that everything is working right after just changing this. I think we matched the C over here. Now everything's working. So if the person selects Iris, right, and then that's it, right? If the person selects the data set to be Iris, and then the model to be SVM, right? So this is the result that we have. Initially, see the accuracy that we have. We're having 23%. So let's try and then tune some hyperparameters in here. So let's say our C equals 5.88. Let's say that. Now you see the accuracy now we're having 96%. You see that. So this is good if you give them the flexibility to tune their model right from here. Right. So they will not worry themselves with a code, right? They will just be playing around with this one. Right? They will just be playing around with this one and see the various parameters that are working for them, right? You can change the data set as you want. Maybe let's use the Y2 and then see, right? If we use the Y, so it's going to load the Y data set over here for us. All right. So after that is loaded, you see that we have that, and then you see the SVM is doing 69%, right? So maybe let's increase the C. It's now doing 69, and let's reduce it and then see if there will be any change. It's still the same thing, so it's not actually making any difference. So let's change the algorithm and see. So this one is also doing the same thing. Let's increase the K to say 9 and then see 66, right? So basically that is it. Let's change this. Let's try it on the breast cancer and see. So it has loaded that one too. Now let's see that it's KNN, right? With K equals 9. You see that we have 92% or 93%, right? And let's see it for support vector machine. So over here you could have added as many classifiers as you want, right? Now you see that for support vector machine we have 78%. Let's try and then tune this hyperparameter and then see maybe to say something like 11.99 and then see. Okay, so now we have 92%. Okay, so now you see how flexible it is, right? The people can now use our web app instead of giving them the code, which they will struggle to even deal with, and sometimes it's even difficult for them because if they mess anything up here, this thing is not going to run, right? I mean, the output here is not going to run. If they mess up anything here, it's not going to run. But if you give them here something like that, there's nothing here to mess up, right? There's nothing here to mess up. Everything they will play with here actually is going to make sense to them, right? Nothing here to mess up. Okay, so that is it for this video. In the next video, we're actually going to do more robust one. We're going to build a more robust one for this. All right, so be as flexible as you want. I mean, you can watch the next video, but before you watch that next video, I entreat you to do this by yourself, start from scratch, do everything by yourself, right? Because your next project is going to be based on this one, right? So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've added new skills to your portfolio, and you're going to build this and then add it to your portfolio. All right. So be as creative as you want, and then add this to your GitHub portfolio or any portfolio that you want to create. All right, so see you in the next video. Have a nice day.